Hello everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, forger, recorder of videos, and tabletop role-playing aficionado. I am so freezing. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM-only live stream, Crafting the Deep, in which I build, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. We are playing characters Gottwald, Muck, Savra, or Toril. The stream is not Matuba every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you would like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. I'm literally going to start like blowing hot air into my hands to warm them up. Our campaign, we use Roll20 for streaming. I use OBS Studio. And, you know, granted, I'm a sweet southern boy and I'm not used to cold temps and yada, yada, yada. But literally woke up this morning and my phone says it was like 15 degrees and felt like -3. Now that's pretty fucking cold, I think. I think that's taking cold a little too far for those of us who live in the southern half of the United States. So it's fucking crazy, super windy and just nuts. They did not close schools down because we haven't had really any precipitation. It's just been really fucking cold. But like all the puddles are like frozen over and shit. Like it's, and you know, our February is crazy like that. Like it could be 80 degrees or it could be 20 degrees. And right now it's on the latter. But I recall usually by now in February, we're getting to be like, you know, later in February, it should be like spring by now for Texas weather. Like we should be outside starting to think about like gardens and stuff. Like we don't have this fuck around winter and March nonsense like some of y'all have. But right now it is kicking my ass. I am wrapped up like an old lady. I got blankets over me. I'm so cold. And I keep my house at like, I don't know what it's like 68 or something, try to save on the bills, but yikes, it is cold. It's also probably cold in the depths of the ocean where Call from the Deep is taking place. Excellent segue as we continue to talk about the weather. Now we're going to talk about D&D, which is still trying to form the finale, I think, because that's the thing that needs the most work at this point. I think I've got a pretty good handle on the next like 2, possibly 3 sessions. That's going to be in the Illithid layer section of the big cavern dome thing that they're in right now. It might be worth revisiting it a little bit. I guess the biggest question I still have with the prisoner stuff, which is, do I want to have them be able to free the prisoners with next session, or wait and make them explore more of the dungeon and just kind of tease the fact that there's prisoners there, and then maybe that can be a thing they explore kind of at the end of it. So I don't know. And I also thought, well, maybe I shouldn't do the Gith tadpole thing with Kazan there, because that's like 2 different social encounters. Maybe I should just have poor Kazan actually be tadpoled and maybe kind of do that to one of my own player characters, and maybe he's suffering from seramorphosis, like a bad case of onset seramorphosis. So I am toying with that a little bit as well. I feel a little nervous about doing that to my own, even though it's my my previous character. So if I have any jurisdiction over jacking with a previous player character, it's one that I literally created and played. But it still feels weird to turn a player character into a fucking mind player like that, unless there's a way to cure poor Kazan. I don't know. Maybe that's something they can ask a boon of. I mean, if there is an entity that can cure that, then perhaps Slarkarthel has that power. So maybe that could be. Although Kazan also would hate Slarkarthel and want to like fight him, so that'll be interesting as well. I don't know how that's going to go down, other than the fact that he'll be really fucked up from coming out of whatever cube thing is going to make some kind of hypersleep system. As for this big battle here, yeah, we didn't get any snow, so I can't complain about any of that. I saw a picture, by the way, on Reddit that was like Detroit suburb, that they got a flood followed by like a flash freeze, and they had like cars like embedded in ice. Like, holy fuck, some of y'all deal with some absolute shitstorm weather to where I'm like, I don't know. I mean, it's the hubris of being like, why would humans live there? But like, humans live everywhere, so it's nuts. But yeah, I do feel shitty complaining about like the least bit of inconvenienced weather when so many people are like, horrifying weather conditions that are just terrible. Hopefully have some infrastructure to deal with that. This is going to be a very, very complicated battle, obviously. It's got a lot of moving parts. I've got the Tritons showing up. I'm still trying to figure out if I guess I need to figure out the timing, like by the time the players make it to this area. I think cinematically it would be the most interesting if the Tritons have already shown up versus having them come in as a cavalry reinforcements, the riders of Rohan or something. I think it would be better if the Tritons were already here, and that was part of, and so the party shows up during a big battle. I guess I could make more tokens and make it even crazier looking because this looks like pretty small potatoes here. It's also hard to um, do that. You know what I'm tempted to do is actually shrink this map. Is that a stupid idea? Because with the size of this map, I kind of have to put tokens everywhere. But if I make the map smaller on purpose, even though it's good that there's so much map here, but I wonder if that actually does me a disservice for trying to paint the picture of having like a war going on around the party, but not wanting to actually run like, token to token warfare kind of a thing, like trying to create the just the cinematic framing of the battle here versus having all these tokens everywhere. So I wonder, because I mean, this map is like, I'm zoomed out at 50% right now. If we're at 100%, like that's there's plenty of map here. Oh, how big? Actually, I can just go to this and figure out, can I? It's 55 by 77 5-foot squares. It's pretty gigantic for an arena map. That is ridiculously big. I mean, there's no way you would even have a map this big if you were playing on an actual table. So now I'm wondering, do I even want to have? I could cut the map up, just focus on the center area, because I talked about like when the party first enters this area, which we presume is going to be in the far lower right corner, right? Because if we look back at the caves map, there is conveniently an entrance right outside of the mini dungeon area that they're in right now, which Vestus would hopefully know about that. They can just pop out of that door, and then they'll have to have some way of ascending like 40 or 50 feet in the air to reach that point, but at level 12, I presume they have some way of doing that. I don't know. I'd let them spend the resources before any of their NPCs volunteer to do that. So that would put them at the farthest possible zone, which has some of its challenges, but also I could kind of work with that. I guess the other thing is I could cheat and say like, well, they could actually spawn in anywhere, right? They could pop in here, and then they're a lot closer to the ongoing battle, for example. So I could shrink the map, and yeah, I could even have them pop into this because they don't know what the upstairs situation looks. I mean, granted, it would look. The only thing that wouldn't add up is if they cared about exploring up here where the stairs are, and they're like, oh, the stairs go down to that other submerged area. Well, that's not nearly enough distance like that. But I don't think it's gonna matter. I don't think they're gonna. There's not gonna be any exploring up here at all. It's just gonna be one big kind of arena boss fight. So the other option is I could just shrink it and have them pop up, and then you don't have to worry about the whole like, oh no, we're now we got to do like the 100 feet to even close in with the enemy thing, which I was thinking about putting them in a little chase sequence, but I don't know if that's still a good idea with a chase sequence that's just rushing up to the boss. It is kind of an awkward thing to work out because not every player wants to get close either, and if I allow, for example, the ranged spellcasters to stay like 120 feet away, that gives them a lot bigger of a safety net versus if I maybe shrink the map. So what if I were to spawn them in here, which is how close is that? That's 85 feet away from, and I guess I could move the Kraken as well, but I've already moved the Kraken slightly. Like it technically spawns around B and D, but I'm kind of putting it what I consider to be the middle of the map, which is kind of where that chute was from the temple they were in. So if instead they pop into this hole here, which also I turned off all that. I forgot I'd put dynamic lighting on this map, which is why you see all the lines. I kind of disagreed with my earlier assertion of that because I think I mentioned the fact it's a big 3D like underwater zone. Like there's no reason any of this any of these walls should actually cut off line of sight because you're going to swim over them. So I turned all that shit off. So I could have them spawn here, and then we could actually just roll initiative as soon as they spawn in, especially if I shorten the map to where like this is kind of the bottom layer of the map. I mean, that would cut off. How much would that cut off? 30, about 30 squares from the bottom, which is pretty big. And if I wanted to, I could even cut off the sides a little bit. If I literally put them in the... In fact, I wonder if I can rotate. Well, if I rotate the map, that's really going to start breaking where things end up, but I'm already breaking them. As long as they spawn in the south and have to move north. So the only thing I could do, I guess, is rotate it completely around and have them pop into that one. But there's a hole down here. This would be fine. And then I could technically shorten it maybe 10 squares on that side. And maybe another 10 squares on the other side. So that would shorten it by 30 squares north and south, and then 20 squares on the east and west axis. That might help make the map a little more manageable. Because I don't know if I want to put all these tokens. I'd like to put them just having them on the edge of the map. And I think that would look better rather than having like this here. So maybe I should duplicate this first so I don't totally fuck things up. Can we, let's see, it used to be a button that you accidentally pressed all the time. There we go, duplicate. Yes, all the things. Okay, copy. So now we click, so now we're on this one. So if we were to, you know what I'm gonna have to do is just delete all the dynamic lighting, because it's all gonna get jacked up. I just realized, shoot. Let's just I tried putting on the GM layer in case I needed it for some reason, but I'm not. I may need these letters. I don't know why, because again, this is not really, you know, before there was the possibility that the party might have come here first if they had actually gone down the chute. That like temple back in Purple Rocks where they were throwing people down a hole. If they had gone down there first, they would actually end up here first. And initially that was part of my like my just in case prep, basically, is if they went that route, then I had like some dialogue written up and they would be some kind of sequence where they had to you know, basically run away from the fucking Kraken creature while they got their bearings and regrouped and then went to the dungeon crawl properly. All this stuff. Okay, so painstakingly deleted that. So now let's shorten the height by about 30, which would put it at 47. Which cuts it off about right there. Actually, we could shorten it off more because we can scoot it up. We don't need all this height either. So let's take all the tokens. I want to just see what it looks like if I do this. Kind of shove him up there a bit. I've got the Merit here because I'm not sure what to do with him. I don't know what the hell happened over here. It's already a disaster. All right. And then let's... So we want to move the maps, what we want to do. Let's move the map to where we don't need... Okay, so there's... Or wait, that's right. That's not part of the map. Okay, that's the middle part. So we want that to be like the middle of the map-ish. All right, that's probably good enough. We don't need to shrink it that much. So that's another how many squares? Let's delete another. Let's do 9 squares. 56 or 36. It's too many. Cannot math. Let's do 38. Okay, that's good. Now we don't need it to be so wide. It's kind of the goal would be to put them like in the lower right corner, I think. There we go. And then, is this on the token layer or is this another map layer thing? Okay, it's not a map layer thing. All right, let's put you there. And let's take out like let's take out a solid like 10 squares maybe on that side. How many is let's see, want that in the middle. That's got 20 squares right now. Actually, it is in the middle right now. Okay, it's 20 squares on each side. Interesting. All right, well, let's take out 6 or 7 squares. Down to 49 on the width. Oh, we need one more. Okay. It's still a pretty big map, honestly, but maybe not as insanely big. Right now it's 48-38. Use 1 hit point minions when I want to make battle more cinematic. Then roll initiative for groups of 5 or so minions. Yeah, like 1 hit kills them. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're literally using like hordes and hordes of minions, that's a good idea. That's not necessarily what I'm doing here, I don't think. I'm actually trying to create like a balanced fight between some bigger. In fact, all these guys are meteor stat blocks. But I can see where if you're using like hordes of what I'm trying to do, honestly, is create that cinematic warfare, but the party is still engaging with a balanced fight in the middle, and then like around them there's other fighting going on, but they're not meant to be included in that fighting. So instead of creating hordes of guys that are all 1 hit point, I'm just removing those guys and having them fighting other guys. And thus the party doesn't actually, I'm trying to create that illusion of the warfare going on around them. Is this still too big of a map? So there, right now I got them spawning in. If I want to use this about, I can move the Kraken more in the middle. Maybe about 100 feet from the Kraken. So already you've got your, there's certain spells that are already usable, right? You're already within, it's about 90 feet from the Kraken. But your melee guys are going to have to really close in there. And then I can create bad guys like all through here. I think I still want to shorten the width though, because I think it's still a little too wide. We've still got like 150 feet of usable space that way. How much is it this way? Yeah, it's way too big still, I think. I mean, mainly because the Kraken is big, but because this is a big map, it actually doesn't look that big. And I think it's the smaller the map, the bigger the Kraken will look. Although, if I still want this to be in the lower right corner, there we go. It's about as far over as I can move it. It just means the other side. Let's try taking out like maybe 10 squares from that side. 10 squares. You've used the way Dragonlance made that happen before. Would that work here? What do you mean? Used the way Dragonlance made that happen before. I need more context, more information. I'm too cold. My brain is slowing down. Let's go 40 width. Let's go 1, 2. What if we just make it 38 by 38? A perfect square. Perfectly balanced. Okay, now we might be getting somewhere. All right. We're still zoomed out to 50%, by the way. Let's put it down to 70%. All right, this still feels like a giant map, but at least it's not like... Because before it was like you could run it as a dungeon, sort of, with like an open dungeon, I guess, going room to room, and that's not at all what I'm using this for. I'm using this as purely a like boss arena fight, and it's already plenty big for a boss arena fight, I think. I know what these guys are. I tried moving it on earlier before the stream, and it would never move on there, so these all like caught up for some reason. That's weird. Oh, okay. You're talking about Yeah. Dragonlance did do a cool thing. Um, it was lower level, I think, right? It was pretty early in that campaign. I won't spoil anything, but that helps inspire me for that though. Yeah, there's a table that you roll basically, or there's something where they actually had it, I think, where there was literally a border around the map, and like the border had like skirmishes, and if you got near that border, you would have to like roll something because you were being involved in the fight. So it was like it was surrounded by battle essentially. Um, I think what I would do is inspired by that, but I would do what I've been doing on some of the more like chaotic cinematic scenes is just have every round somebody rolls on the chaotic battle table, and and then whatever happens and affects either certain people or maybe everybody in the party, and that would just be like errant blasts of lightning going one way, or somebody's harpoon is thrown at you, or just somebody represented by the ongoing the warfare, the waves crashing over and pushing people back or something. Somebody's getting hit by something basically. This one is unique because it's all underwater shit too. So right now I've got a mix of kind of strong stat blocks, and I may need to back off because obviously the Kraken is the strongest of strong stat blocks. But remember, the Kraken is not going to be at full strength. They are not fighting a straight up Kraken, a CR 25, whatever it is. I'm going to be, all the work that they've been doing, the Augmenter Brains and dismantling them, have allowed Slarkrethel to rebel against the grafting of the Elder Brain, which I liked that folks said, well, how about we just let Slarkrethel literally roll like wisdom saves every round, and if it makes its wisdom save, which it has a plus 11 against a DC 18, I think, wisdom save. So the odds are it's going to make the save most rounds. In fact, I don't know what the odds of that are. What's the odds of making a DC 18 on a plus 11? If we roll it, let's roll it like 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, it actually failed the 4th one, which it has to roll a 6 or less, so that math checks out. I feel like it's got like about a 70% chance of success. But maybe that's how you balance the fight, because 70% of the time the Kraken's actually not attacking. We could still let the Elder Brain maybe attack, although if it can't use its tentacles because it's grafted onto Slarkrethel, then I think it's pretty limited in what it can do. It's got its Mind Blast ability, which could be good enough, just forcing intelligence save or blasting everybody with psychic damage. Pretty good amount of psychic damage, although it is on a recharge. It's got 1 use of Dominate Monster, and that's about it in terms of what it can do. I guess it can try to make a Psychic Link. It can only do that if people are incapacitated, technically. It does have its own legendary actions, which I would probably turn these into like actions or something it can do. I might play around with the stat block a little bit. You know what I should do actually is I have the monster manual. It's in a different room. Look up and see if the Elder Brain is actually included in the 2024 manual and see what if they've done anything there. And then the Kraken, and what I could also maybe do is still, if the Kraken makes it saves, then we could still have it maybe use like legendary actions, for example. Ink Cloud, a 60-foot radius Ink Cloud is not good for its minions. Each creature on the Kraken ends its turn there must succeed on a DC 23 con save or take 3d10 poison damage. A successful one, which lasts till the next turn. Is anybody within 60 feet of the Kraken? Oh yeah, everybody's within 60 feet of the Kraken. Good lord. That's a big radius, 60-foot radius. That's gnarly. So that might not be the best while they've got minions, but might not always have minions. Lightning Storm is, of course, a great one. Because that's just its ability to fling lightning around or doing a single tentacle attack. So that might be a great way of balancing the fight, is like 70% of the time, Slarkrethel's not going to be able to use his full stat block, but I'll still maybe let it use legendary actions. And then the Elder Brain can maybe still use its actions while they're targeting everything. And then what I've got right now is Kraken Priests. I'll have to determine how many of those to use, but that seems pretty appropriate to use down here. And everybody down here would have to be enthralled. Like, I don't know if any of them would actually be Maybe not the Marrow. Maybe the Marrow are just like, okay, yeah, Sarkothel's like commanding us. But the Barons, well, the ones I'm using right now, the Sahuagin, maybe I shouldn't because they're like the boss level Baron Thrall. The party just bodied them so bad in those two guards before. I feel like I can use them without much thought, but maybe I'm using too many strong stat blocks here. As minions, the Kraken Priests have an average of 70 hit points. They've kind of offensive powerhouses with their lightning bolts. The Sahuagin Baron Thrall mutant stat block has the those psychic swords that do more damage, as well as an 18 AC. They actually don't have range attacks at all. Blood Frenzy makes them pretty bad. I guess I have to be careful on how many to use. And I thought Deep Scion is a pretty appropriate stat block to have down here. Doesn't get more Kraken Society than that. And several of them would also be on board. You know, they've been fighting Deep Scions this whole time. They're kind of a minion stat block, except for the fact they have a lot of hit points. They also don't have any range attacks, though. I probably wouldn't let them use their Psychic Screech, because that would just be a pain in the ass being able to stun everybody. But in terms of just having, you know, a single bite and claw attack, I think maybe reducing their hit points might be the best way to go and use more Deep Scions. Maybe like halve their hit points. And then I still love the Marrow, and the party has fought them before. I just thought that was really impressed with their stat block. They've got the double attack, but just the harpoons, just good damage potential without being too powerful. So those are all the stat block ideas I'm using. None of them are going to be too complex. The Kraken Priests, they do have a few spells they can get off. I think Everard's Black Tentacles is the only pain in the ass one. But given the size of this area, I'm not sure it's even worth throwing down any kind of like AoE ongoing effects. And the other crazy thing is, you know, the Kraken can move around as well. This thing can be fully mobile and should be fully mobile, even though it's got an insane range of 30 feet for its tentacles. And obviously the Lightning Storm is 120 feet. How far can this thing move? Swim speed of 60 feet. Oh yeah, it casts Foresight on itself. What is Foresight? Is that just like disadvantage on attacking them? Every time I see that, I keep thinking of Foreskin. Like that's not what it does. For the duration, the target can't be surprised and has advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. Additionally, other creatures have disadvantage on attack rolls against the target for the duration. And it's not concentration. It's a 9th level spell. Rogues hate this one spell. So somehow I'm going to have to remember this, because I do want to have that be part of the Kraken. Although, technically, that's probably only for the Kraken and not for the Elder Brain. Or should I rule it like that? If the Elder Brain is grafted onto the Kraken, and I guess if I am using the Kraken's AC for the Elder Brain, which I am, because it's got a base AC of 10. I was going to use it as an AC 18. Then maybe I do have to run Foresight for the Elder Brain. That's interesting. But if I'm running them as two separate creatures, sort of, I'll have to figure that out. What a pain in the ass for the party. They're like, oh, by the way, you guys have disadvantage on everything. That really makes things tricky, but I mean, it is a fucking final boss fight. Sort of. The stage 1 final boss fight, I should say. Advantage on attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws, which is huge. Does that mean Slockrethel would have advantage on his wisdom saves, though? If he has advantage on wisdom saves, there's almost no chance he's going to fail. Almost. Just lowers the chances, I guess. Also, it's interesting that it says Slockrethel casts Foresight on itself before it attacks. Which that means it would never have its 9th level spell slot to use Power Word Kill. Is that correct? Because it only has one 9th level spell, if I'm running this correctly. I need to look up what the 2024 Kraken says on there. I meant to have that book in front of me, but I don't feel like getting up because I'm wrapped around in a blanket. Maybe it's worth using some of its spells. I don't know. I mean, they could all be really devastatingly powerful. Chain Lightning is probably the best one to use underwater versus bashing people with its tentacles. I don't really want to lobotomize people with feeble mind. Mass suggestion could be kind of a fun one to use for the whole party. What would the suggestion be? Go away. Everybody just has to swim away. It's an open ocean. Like, you can just keep swimming for the longest time. And the DC is probably 20 something. Yeah, DC 22 for the saves. Mass suggestion would be terrifying. DC 22 wisdom save. And it's not concentration. Pursues the course of action, discard the best of its abilities. Continue for the entire duration. He could just say, like, go away, return to the surface. If you or any of your companions damage a creature affected by the spell ends for that creature. But as long as everybody gets the MO that, like, hey, don't damage it, then the Kraken just ends the fight pretty quick. Go away. How many can he do? Up to 12 creatures of your choice you can see within range. We could also argue that maybe he already used it on the Tritons or something. That's why there's fewer Tritons around. So I want to put, like, these on the side, sort of. This thing. That was the hole where the temple thing was. But even if I do this, I feel like the party's already going to be like, oh, we got to jack with those. But maybe if they come in on this side, the opposite side of the Tritons, then maybe we won't actually have to run these too much. These we can delete. Why is it not deleting? Delete it the old-fashioned way. By clicking. We've also got the Swag and Illithid hybrids we could use. Would be pretty cool down here, and I believe they can go underwater. Yes. Yes, they can. These might actually be better than the Deep Scions, because they've already got the 30 hit points. They do have a limited range attack with Mind Sliver. They could even do the tentacle thing and try to stun people if they're in melee range. They only have a +3 to hit, though. What is the Deep Scions plus to hit? So maybe those guys are actually too weak. Yeah, Deep Scion's a +6. That's a lot more effective. So maybe these guys... I guess these would probably be the guys who be like the 1-hit pointers. Or like the 1-hits, like, take them out. So maybe use like hordes of these dudes. If I need to use hordes. Because unfortunately, the map doesn't provide much here, I believe, the original map. In fact, Slarkathel and Zelix 4 are just by themselves in one corner. The Krakenar entrance has Sahuagin Raiders, 4 Sahuagin Raiders, 2 Marrow, and a Triton Champion Thrall. Champion stat block is pretty strong. CR9, kind of a mini boss. That which is C would be... I think it's up here somewhere. Western entrance has 6 Marrow. And then Southern entrance has 2 Kraken Priests and a Sahuagin Baron. Which is spread out over that whole area. So... it's not a great... So I don't know. There was no, like, kind of final boss fight set up here. Well, except for the Fractured Hand. I guess we can look at what that one does. Which is... what is he? Guarded by 4 Githzerai, Thralls... and there's another area guarded by 4 mutants. Not even any Mind Flayers there. That's weird. I'm also, of course, leery about using too many different kinds of stat blocks in a big fight like this, because that gets pretty challenging to try to juggle all the different creatures. It might be worth maybe just having like the 1 Baron Thrall and maybe just giving him increased hit points, like he's some sort of boss level Thrall with more hit points. Maybe take out having multiples of those, so it makes them a little scarier. But still include multiple Kraken priests and, of course, plenty of marrow. Which we should put them everywhere, so the party has to immediately deal with some of them. Just swimming around. So one Kraken priest. So maybe put a thrall near. I guess, is Slarkarthel within 30 feet of the... You know what I should do is put a bunch of Triton bodies, like dead ones. So like killed a bunch of them already. That would look better. Dead Tritons. The idea being that Kish and Harley went back to their base, reported into Gillian, and then Gillian has sent an army to battle this creature, even though going up against the Kraken is a bit of a suicide mission, but they're assuming the party will help them in the end there. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's over a dozen still remaining, but maybe there's just like fucking bodies everywhere. Too many tokens around is a bit of a problem. There we go. So maybe they've been pushed back a little bit. There we go. There's the Kraken within reach of that. We've got another marrow here. It's been killing them. And yeah, they're kind of around. And yes, I have a giant manta ray that Killian comes in on, which is kind of amazing. So they should still be able to see that in terms of me describing everything. So if they come in now, this entrance to the lower left, that puts them about 160 feet away from the Triton battle going on, but just under 100 feet away from the Kraken. And then along the way, I'll put a few enemies in there. Yeah, there would be a lot of bodies. Yeah, I mean, it's basically killing people every round. But the thing is, as soon as the party, you know, the timing is interesting here because basically as soon as the party destroys the fourth brain, that's probably when Slarkarthel can really start making those saves more often and actually stun the Elder Brain's control. Which hopefully we can not have the party long rest again before this, which is going to be tricky because they are going through some stuff, but I'm hoping we can have them not have to long rest again because the timing just doesn't work out for them to get a full long rest. Maybe we can do something where we give the party like, hey, you all at least heal up to full or some kind of bullshit like that. You know, you can use a damage restoration pod to at least, you can't restore like, I don't know, hit dice and spell slots, but you can at least restore your current hit points. Maybe we could do kind of a half thing on that because I just don't see them being able to rest for 8 hours here. I don't really have a way. I don't think. Does anyone remember if I had the Tritons be able to communicate with the party? Like, did they leave off some kind of sending stone situation? I don't think they do. Maybe I could have it where they've got some kind of projection spell they can use to at least to inform the party that hey, we've engaged the Kraken. I don't know, whatever. They arrived and we noticed the Kraken has been acting suddenly weird and screaming out and lashing and or stunned, and so we moved in and were forced to engage them. You know, we were found out or whatever. We're already losing. Like, basically just add the sense of urgency. Like, literally do that classic, like, hey, there's a war going on and we need your help, like, right now. And so the party, that might give them the urge. Because otherwise they wouldn't know about the urgency necessarily. So maybe I need to actually have some kind of, set up some kind of communication that the Tritons can give the party to, that would send their butts up here sooner rather than later. And I wouldn't, so the ones that are over here, excuse me, near the actual Tritons and stuff, I would not run these creatures as stat blocks. They're just kind of there, again, fighting off screen. If the party wants to do something, then I'll need to reward them somehow. maybe like give them inspiration or something, because I just don't have any interest in running this, but I want to have them be kind of on the battlefield more or less. Maybe create some more bodies over here. So many Bothans were lost. It's a lot. But the rest of them they would have to deal with. So right now, all that is 4 Marrow, 2 Deep Scions, 2 Kraken Priests, and a Sawagan Baron Mutant Thrall that I will probably max. We'll turn this into like a who's Gwendolyn Christie's Stormtrooper character, like just a more powerful version of a regular trooper. 9d10 is 90. So we can just give you 100 hit points. We can make you 100 hit point for all. Maybe you won't get freaking ass kicked so quickly. There you go. Make that one a little more stronger. I've been killing people left and right. Mara would probably be the thing I would throw more of them in there, I think. Well, the Tritons attack the Kraken if the Elder Brain is gone, given that they'll probably see it as evil. I mean, that's going to be a big part of what I'd like to do. It might have to be the following session, because I assume this battle will take the whole session. But yes, and that's something that I want to bring to the players to have to deal with this situation, is like, hey, this is a powerful, evil creature. I think it's objectively evil. I mean, it's hard to, I guess, paint anything as objectively evil, but in this universe, there are objectively evil creatures, sentient creatures, I guess. That's like the biggest, like, weird thing about thinking about fantasy worlds, I guess. But I think the Kraken is supposed to be objectively evil. And I mean, it's certainly like a megalomaniac power thing, so that's usually evil. But it's being co-opted by other evil forces, and those evil forces have more designs on world conquest and enslavement and everything than the Kraken necessarily does. The Kraken's probably fine with just ruling the seas. So, yeah, so the Tritons would be of the opinion like, hey, let's fucking kill Slarkarthel while he's weakened. Like, this is the perfect chance to destroy him. And, we just lost a lot of Tritons to do that, just to be able to restore the Kraken to its full might. Like, we need to take him out. And that would be the opinion of the Tritons, I think. However, on the other hand, the party has Vestris, who is the Illithid Lich, who's like, no, we need to restore Sarkarthel to, his rightful place in the ocean. There's a lot of shit that he keeps in check. There's maybe she'll even tease the fact that there's like other eldritch beings and powerful creatures that Sarkarthel, keeps away and deals with, and it's like the devil you know versus the devil you don't know kind of a situation. There's a good bit about how, like, in a lot of comics where they take out a big villain, and then the villain's like, yeah, well, I was doing a lot of work. You'll see what happens when I'm put away. And then sure enough, like, other villains come into play. So I would tease that fact, and the fact, obviously, Toril is a fucking, Sarkarthel is his god, basically his patron, and he worships Sarkarthel. So that's going to be a big story moment. And I would love to explore that with the party. So yes, I think you bring up a great point, Nate, that the Tritons would, and some of the party should certainly see the Kraken as evil also. Like, I guess probably don't know the lore outside of what I tell them, but generally it's considered a very dangerous, powerful, at the very least, like, mysterious, self-serving creature, which usually is bad news. So this would be an interesting case where the party would technically have a choice. Now, I would give them maybe a moment to decide that before Slarkarthel wakes up and begins, basically wanting to wreak revenge on you probably. And honestly, the other thing I have to think about is how to roleplay it from Slarkarthel's point of view, and if the Kraken has a bit of a say in this, which I think the Kraken would do the respectable villain thing and be like, all right, Everybody gets to go home. We forget this ever happened. He's probably a little embarrassed by it, if anything else. Nothing. I mean, I assume he's just a narcissistic asshole, but this would be a huge blight on him being able to wrest in control like this. So it makes sense that he'd want to like murder everybody here. But on the other hand, he's also going to be very weakened, so and pissed off. He would definitely want to kill the Mind Flayers for sure. He would have no remorse over killing all the Tritons. No remorse for anything that he did while being mind controlled. It's not like he would be like, "Oh, I'm sorry." He'd be like, "No, that's not how he works." He'd just be like, "I want to fucking kill, every mind." And that would be the other thing is the players. I kind of talked about it in an earlier crafting where the players might even have a choice between, hey, do we take out Slarkarthel now, or maybe in taking out Slarkarthel, trying to take out Slarkarthel, we let the Mind Flayers get away, right? Because the Elder Brain actually teleports away, and then investors would be able to tell them like, oh shit, it teleported to the astral plane, like it's weakened. Now's our chance to take out the Elder Brain once and for all, whereas the Tritons are going to be like, well, let's try to take out Slarkarthel once and for all, and that'll be that big kind of, classic video game BioWare, like, what do you do at the end? Either way, you're going to have to let at least one, like, powerful evil creature live, I think, which is an interesting ending here. But again, I think it's the do you want to go back to the status quo, I guess, of having Slarkarthel still do his thing? And you could also argue, maybe the players could argue that like him being like he'll be weakened for a while. Like he's, he really got his fucking like ass kicked a little bit here, and his whole empire really got thoroughly ransacked. So he's not gonna be in a good position to fight back anytime soon or build back or anything. But the same is true of the Mind Flayers too. Technically, they also got their asses kicked and they're shunted to the astral plane. But if you leave the Elder Brain alive, like it could, with some other Mind Flayers, they could certainly come back and rebuild their empire and be stronger than ever. So it would be an interesting point for the players to make, and I want them to talk about that. And that's why it's going to be two very distinct boss fights, right? Two distinct stages, because I want to have this big important social moment following this first stage of the battle, which is their big underwater, Kraken showdown. And then after, so it may have to wait until the following session we do that, because again, this will presumably take all the time. And then after that, so I may have to actually prepare for two different stage 2 boss fights. I'm like 90% sure they will not want to kill Slarkarthel, just basically, I mean, based on their whole campaign they've done so far, which is, like, yeah, they hate the Mind Flayers and stuff, but they understand Toral's a fan of the Kraken, and like it just feels like that's the way they're going to go. And so I would presume they're going to follow and fight the Elder Brain in the Astral Hand and do all that. But I guess I may need to prepare for a second stage boss fight where they don't do any of that and instead just battle Slarkarthel right here, which unfortunately is just like a way stronger version of the first fight. Granted, he might not have any minions left. Now, one thing I could do is if they target, which they should, the Elder Brain first and knock it out, that is what's going to trigger, obviously, the whole thing happening. So even if there's minions left, we're not going to run, like, it's like him being the Mind Flayer, the Elder Brain teleporting away should break, like, the Psionic control that a lot of these minions have. So they should immediately stop fighting, and then we'll trigger that social scene from there. So hopefully he'll have maybe a few minions left, but maybe not. But still, the players will have fought a whole battle too. Like, and we'll see what happens in there. Would I let them kill Slarkarthel? Yeah, I think so. But I also think that would still end up in a TPK for them, unless they have some kind of crazy abilities that I'm not aware of. If the Mind Flayers get away, it could make for a one-shot later for Halloween or something. Yeah, maybe. I feel like that's just the ending you chose. Like, I'm really thinking about like an RPG at the end where it's like, what ending did you choose? Did you choose to finish off the Mind Flayers once and for all, or did you choose to finish off Slarkarthel once and for all? And if I let them follow up on that gives them the chance to do both. And I'd rather they be forced to choose. So yeah, that'll be an interesting thing there. Now, the big question is, if they don't finish off Slarkarthel, which is what a lot of video games would do you then have to fight the fucking Tritons? Or could you, with a proper persuasion check or whatever, uh, be able to convince the Tritons, hey, I know you just lost like a shit ton of people, and obviously this Kraken has been a huge, malevolent force for you all, but we've got this bigger enemy out there that we need to go take out. So yeah, sorry, we're not gonna help you all in this endeavor. And then with the Tritons be like, no, fuck you. But maybe they would also see the chance, like the Kraken is, would start powering out. I would also like to do a cool scene where the Kraken, I'll have to do this very carefully as well, like tries to like drain Toril or do something related to Toril. And if Toril gives into that, then maybe he's rewarded by getting some kind of extra, I don't know, super powered enhancements or something from briefly giving in some like hit points or something to Slarkarthel. And then Slarkarthel going to go, and then that would basically trigger the cutscene where Slarkarthel goes on a rampage, dives under the ruins, I guess, and smashes it full of water. Maybe he like breaks up the runes and it starts filling with water, and he goes down and just starts like thrashing with his tentacles and lightning storms all up in that giant dome, and essentially breaks apart the dome. And then that's where maybe the portal leads into the astral plane. And then maybe Vestris has to, probably something to do with Vestris keeping it open, because she needs to know, because I think she will be in this final fight, which she's pretty strong. Which I need to be careful about running her as well, because she won't need to protect the party anymore, so she'll be back to using her full stat block here, which maybe I'll need to add a few more creatures just based on her being able to do, which I think I did take out her multi-attack and just let her do like single attack damage or something. But you saw she can basically do an 8d6, like a single target fireball to somebody every round, which is still pretty powerful. So I might throw a few more marrow in here. For some reason there's one on the GM lay right now. So that's what we're looking at right now. I haven't actually rolled hit points for everybody yet, because I'm still waiting on to see how many stat blocks I want. And then in addition to all of this, there will be a single table. It'll either be a D4 or a D6 table that the party will have to roll every round. And I think that will basically replace the layer actions. Some of them basically will be layer actions, but it'll just reflect the fact that there's this ongoing warfare going on, where there's different, weapons being thrown around and everything else. Honestly, the map is still a lot bigger than I wanted it to be, but I still want this whole present on the map screen. So I think that's about as small as I can make it. The only other thing I could do is flip the map around and then holds a little bit closer. Yeah, by like 20 feet, I guess. I'll have to think about that. If I wanted to make it even smaller. But maybe there's something to be said about having like just a big ass arena battle with I just feel like right now it looks too empty, like there's not enough minions around. And maybe we could use these small Swag and Illithid guys and just literally have them at like 1 hit point and just throw them everywhere. And then they're just doing little stab attacks. They're not really doing much, and they just die like from whatever little blasts or something, so it doesn't look so empty in here. But we still keep like the Marrow as legit stat blocks, the Kraken Priest. I like the idea of a 100 hit point, like Baron Thrall as being particularly strong. So maybe we can work with that. If they come back from the astral plane, if they accidentally travel to the future, they can see the consequence of their actions. That's pretty messed up. That reminds me of the end of the possible ending of Rime, where they can randomly travel to the past and just end up like back when, I think before the Netherese city actually like crashed into the ground or something. But they see like, yeah, the Kraken has raised like this massive underwater army and just rules the seas or something. Like all the Tritons are dead. Could be. If anything is useful for a possible time travel situation, which I'm almost annoyed that the Vecna campaign didn't do, but it'd be fun if like one of them did like the what was the Doomed Forgotten Realms series, where it's like post-apocalyptic Forgotten Realms, where like all the campaigns like ended in failure. That'd be fun to have at least like one of the like you know, Infinity Stone travel sequences to be like having to go into the future, into this dark post-apocalyptic future. That'd be a really cool little, but don't have it be like a whole campaign of that. Just like that's one of the adventure modules. So just pick like, you know, Waterdeep or some iconic site and just have the players have to do their adventure in that like future setting. I guess would be pretty entertaining. All right, I think that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting the Deep, which I didn't even talk about what's going on next session, but hopefully it's going to be a lot of social stuff and exploration, and then possibly fighting the Luzgurgal boss battle. We're not going to have Reese tomorrow, by the way. He's on vacation, so I might actually even end it a little bit early right at the beginning of that boss fight. If you enjoyed the content, as always, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. Shouts to Planet Patrons, Joe, Will, Thomas, Dan, Brandon, Zen, Star Eclectic, Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Corey, Big Nut, John F., John L., Nathan, Chris, Counselor, Andrew, Stephanie, Jason, Lumpy Spuds, Warden, Harold, Unimona, LC, Tom, Eating the Dogs, Ayla, Marcus, Snuggy, Hugo, Mirrodin, Nikos, and Ruby, and Gold Patrons, RPG, Peppergrams, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Deadless, Lounge, Jerome, Nathan, Pass, Tortoise, Scott, Rufus, Jerry, Glenn, and Mark. Thank you all very much for support. I will see you for D&D tomorrow. I hope it's not as cold tomorrow.